On today's episode of the Omkar, I want to cover the topic of what is puja. I have always mentioned, even with the previous series, Diksha, that the process of yoga is a very dangerous uh, practice. So, from Isha, which is Sadhguru, Kundalini Yoga is the most dangerous form of yoga because it's the most potent. And it's the same thing I always say. The more in depth the yogic practice is, it becomes more dangerous because you are dealing with too much energy to be channeled into the human body that is not ready. And um, the reason for that, the now this is leading up to why what is puja in Hinduism and why puja is the best practice, especially for this day and age. So when it comes to Kundalini Yoga or the raising of the Kundalini, so all forms of yoga deal with the Kundalini, or every single form, even Puja, deals with the Kundalini because Kundalini is, let's say, is the life force. Because there's this misconception that Kundalini is some sleeping dormant energy. What Kundalini really is, if we look at I'll give you an example. If we look at a car and the engine of the car, or the whole car itself. When you buy a car, the car is not a race car. Even if you buy a sports car, it's more of a sporty car rather than a true sports car. So what you have to do with the car, you have to modify the engine, you have to modify the suspension, you have to modify the braking system to make it a true sports car. In the same way, when we deal with Kundalini, um, the let's say the driving force or the life force of the human being comes from the the energy or shakti within the person. And when you begin doing yoga, then in yoga, the you begin tuning or modifying the amount of energy that is put out. The same way you tune an engine in a car to get more power out of the engine. It's the very same way that with Kundalini, when you do any form of yoga and you are tuning now your life force to output more power. Now, in the same way, when you tune an engine in a car, and um, you can blow up the engine. And so when we get into different forms of yoga, we begin channeling more energy or tuning the human body to to so these are the different levels or the different areas to tune to be able to channel more energy. Now what happens here, what people don't realize when you are tuning is that any underlying problem in any of these, now these are energy centers. They are not, let's say, the only energy centers, but they are the major energy centers. And you can think of it like the example I was giving as a car, where you have, engine and brakes, the transmission, the suspension, um, the steering system. So you have different places that you have to modify and tune in order for your race car to be performing, let's say, at the top level. So in the same way, if you just power up, you just tune the engine of the car, you don't have a race car because you didn't do anything else. And if you tune the engine too much for what the engine is capable of, you blow up the engine. In the same way, if you release too much of power in the human body, you can destroy yourself. And any problem or any um, underlying issue in any one of the energy centers, they they are given more power, and so they give different issues. So they have health issues, you have um, psychological issues, you have emotional issues. So over here, puja is a ritualistic act of devotional worship to honor a deity, a spirit, or a guest characterized by offerings, prayers, and mantras. So in the beginning, we had Siddha, the Siddhas, right? So I covered the Siddhas, the original meaning, not the modern interpretation of what a Siddha is. The Siddhas were made perfect, right? So the original Siddhas were born that way. They were considered to be mind born, being born as perfected masters. Yeah, in the list of Siddhas, we have um, Yoga Vasishta, Agastya Muni. So these people that we are familiar with. And from there, the Siddhas were the first teachers of mankind. Now, the way the Siddhas taught initially was by something called Shaktipat. So, Shaktipat is the transmission of spiritual energy from a master to a disciple. So, um, important to note is that the energy transfer can occur through a guru's look, thought, touch, or sometimes with a sacred word or object that initiates the disciple into spiritual practice, right? So what happened, because the spiritual master, the siddhas, by their look and thought, touch, and by mantra, they would, that is all it took to awaken your spiritual energy. And there are examples of this in scriptures. Well, most of us know Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita. I personally, I have not studied those books, but I know it from, not know it, I just know what I know from hearing it in satsangs. And the example in Ramayana, uh, as an example, would be Hanuman. Hanuman is one of the Siddhas, Siddha masters. And when he went to Lanka and he punched the god of the garden, and they call it satsang. Now, Hanuman being a spiritual, he being a siddha, and with his intention that she wake up by touching her. Now, touch could, they say, through touch, and most of us think, well, touch has been, or they bless you with their palms up, and they touch you on your head, but if a siddha touches you, it could be they touch you with their foot. They could, well, in this case, Hanuman punched the woman, and but her delusion disappeared. That is called Shaktipat. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna removed the illusion from Arjuna's eye. He awakens him, and that comes through Sri Krishna just thinking about the person being awakened, and so that is something that is part of the energy transfer of the Siddha Master. Now, from as the population grew and expanded, it became harder to make contact with a siddha. So from there, the use of sacred words and objects were the primary ways that the energy was transferred in order to initiate someone into spirituality or grant them enlightenment or spiritual, to accelerate their spiritual growth, to awaken the Kundalini. And we know this, so sacred words would be mantras. So mantra yoga, right? That form of yoga focus on chanting a sacred sound or phrases to achieve spiritual goals. This was the primary purpose. And then we have, in terms of object, they are what we call yantras. But all of us know what a yantra is. But these are, the definitions here. So, let's say in the dictionary, it's a geometrical diagram or object used to aid in meditation in tantric worship. So basically what is supposed to happen is the yantra is a sacred geometric diagram used in Hinduism and Buddhism as a tool for spiritual practice, ritual, and meditation. Now, the science behind it is that the yantra itself is a symbol or is a physical mantra, right? So where the mantra is sound transfer, which is through the air we register, and that frequency then awakens our consciousness. The yantras, they will pass through the eye in the same way and tries to awaken our consciousness. So the different yantras have, by meditating on the yantra, it awakens the consciousness. Now from there we have mudra. So mudra yoga involves the use of specific symbolic hand gestures or seals to channel energy, life energy, or shakti, with the subtle body, within the subtle body, enhancing the effects of meditation and pranayama. Well, pranayama goes with yoga. Breathing technique, control of the breath goes with yoga, right? I'm just going through these quickly, but in later episodes I'll cover everything. Now we know, all of us know as Hindus, we know the basic mudra, which is this one here, Gyan mudra, but there are many mudras for different purposes, right? Some of these we have seen. So we have Gyan. Some mudras are used when we do jap and these kind of things. So, but the purpose ties into asana, which is, if you think of meditation, asanas, right? Most of us are familiar with Sukhasana, Padmasana, which is a lotus posture, right? So these are basic postures we know for meditation, and even, well, we know when we do puja, traditionally you sit in these postures, right? So what I want to point out here is the use of mudra, so you can see here, along with asana, and the purpose now. So so how meditation asanas redirect energy. Let's see what comes up. If any diagram doesn't come up, I'll explain it. But I'm just looking for, probably there was an energy diagram. Okay, so I'm not really seeing a diagram specifically, but I guess this one will be the easiest one to explain it. So, because we have the highlighted areas here. So, this is kind of exactly what I'm looking for. So, what happens when we sit in an asana? So, I previously explained how energy goes through the body and why we touch the right feet and why we bless with the right hand and these kind of things, where the energy that we have flows. So when we breathe in, it goes to the base at the Kundalini, goes up, but while passing through the different areas, there are different nadis and different channels and chakras. So this is one chakra here. And this is another chakra here. We have chakras at the base of the feet. And so when we meditate, we want to maximize how this energy goes up and out through the crown. So what the mudras do, when you bridge these two fingers, it closes this gate, basically, and redirects the energy back up that would have otherwise gone through the right hand. So you close this gate. And in the left hand, where energy comes into the body, you close that gate so the energy does not, from the outside environment. So if you go to temple and you are around people and you are doing puja, that you don't pick up any environmental energy. Then to the other hand, you close off that by doing the Gyan mudra. So you close off the hand from taking environmental energy, and you close off the gate on the hand that is letting energy escape. When you cross the legs and you place the palms on the down on the legs, any energy that is on the legs now get redirected back into the body. And that's why you cross the legs as well. So the feet touch you. It your feet touch you. So then the energy that would have gone out goes back into the body and goes back up. And any energy that is coming out through the other leg and in would be from your own body. And so everything is to maximize the upward movement of energy. So, and then lastly, besides, so with sound mantra yoga, it involves sacred sounds. And the thing about sacred sounds is not all sounds can be produced by the human vocal cords. Well, obviously, in terms of frequency. And that is why the Hindus have developed a system where sometimes you go to the ocean. So I'm Googling here Indian Hindu sacred sound instruments. But most likely, oh, there's a list over here. So that works out. Right? So we have the bell, the shank. Well, we have the drums, the tanpura, which is the drone, and the little, I don't know the name, but the little gong that we ring in puja, which are the common sounds used during puja, right? So mostly the bell, the shank, and the gong. And so sacred sounds are not only mantra that can be made by the vocal cords, but also sounds. For example, some pujas we go to the ocean because the sound of the rolling of the waves, they are a type of mantra. You go sometimes to the river, so the flowing water itself, that sound is a different kind of mantra. And that's why yogis, they seek out certain places rather, to go for certain types of yoga, meditation, because of the sound in the environment acts as a mantra. So here I describe different forms of yoga practices, right? So mudra, yantra, mantra, well, Shaktipat, in sound in terms of the shank, and how asana, how all that works. And this is where puja comes in. And puja, let's say, was a distilled practice that incorporated all of, well, even if you think about fire, the heat from the fire, so let's say the radiation from the fire and the visual effect of the fire on the mind also lends itself to meditation. So that is why we use diyas and fire and these kind of things. So, so there is actually a type of yoga called flame yoga, which is a secret technique. So I don't know if you actually find the real. So Tratak meditation. This is not exactly a meditation. So it ties into yantra, but where the flame itself is seen as a yantra. So it is a form of meditation that is done while focusing on a flame. I don't really recommend that you do this because it is very dangerous in terms of what the energy that it can produce, and so it's for well, they're marketing it as good for eye health, but it's not really about eye health. It's for developing the third eye. But if you have mental issues, you could go crazy doing it. So that's the disclosure, the full disclosure there. The full This is one of the meditations. If you do it, you'll go insane if you have mental issues. So don't. Well, it's a form of yoga. The whole point is the flame, the use of fire in meditation is part of why we use fire and diyas in puja. So Yeah, so it was the distillation of all these different forms of yogas coming through the years, first from the Siddhas, which is the guru, the practice of Guru Diksha, and then Shaktipat, which is the transfer of physical energy, where the guru blesses you while chanting certain mantras. We have mantra yoga, obviously the chanting of sacred mantras, sacred diagrams, yantras on the Bedi and the design of the Bedi. We have mudra, which is the hand postures that you assume while, for example, putting oblations into the hawan, while you sit for puja, prayer. The posture that you take, which is sitting on the floor with the legs crossed, has a purpose. Um, I see a lot of people, they sit on chairs now or short stools. Those don't really have a yogic purpose. Standing for meditation is a yogic posture. So the times that we have to stand to do certain offerings is a yoga posture. But there are certain key elements when it comes to standing for meditation. So all these have been incorporated and distilled into the practice of puja. And so puja, let's say, as if you want to call it puja yoga, as a practice, a discipline for the age that we live in, it is a distillation of, let's say, all the tried and true methods of worship or of meditation throughout the ages till now. So the thing about it is it's tailored for the masses. It's tailored for everybody to use. You don't have to go through intense discipline, uh, let's say learning mantra and perfecting each and every sound. You don't, because that's the purpose of the Brahmin. That's the Brahmin's job, to chant the appropriate mantras. He knows the yantras to draw. He will instruct you on the mudras, um, in terms of how to, when telling you when to stand, when to sit, these kind of things, when to blow the shank, when to ring the bell, when to light the flame. All these things are part of the puja process that the Brahmin is trained in. And so he is, let's say, the technician of yoga. It's a yoga technician, let's say. And so this is why the practice of puja is, let's say, the best form of yoga to practice, for those who are not inclined to the strict discipline of yoga. Let's say a particular yoga. So Kundalini yoga, Kriya yoga, or any other form of yoga like mantra yoga. If you don't have that inclination to be that disciplined, then this is where puja is very valuable. The one thing I have to mention though is puja is very powerful, right? Puja itself, in any form of puja worship, when done correctly, is very powerful. And so you still run into the problem of, if you as a person have trauma, emotional issues, you have um, like ego problems, and I'll go into ego in another episode, but if you are, as an individual, you have problems, this is where puja, the Hindus now, they focus on um, the the telling of stories. So that is where Ramayana comes in, right? So you have Ramayana, you have the Bhagavad Gita. So it's not so. This is where some people complain that, you hear the same stories over and over, and it's always the same thing, and they resort to finding faults with the scriptures and finding criticizing. But the purpose of it for the modern Hindu is to give the modern Hindu an ideal, a perfected ideal. And this is important to purify the intellect and to purify you in terms of your mind, to give you an ideal sense of what love is, and a thorough sense of where we stand in terms of our place in creation, in the universe, which is something that comes from meditation, from strict meditation. You get this. So by developing, so by the stories in the scriptures seek to purify the intellect and to purify the individual so that when they practice puja, that they do not suffer any negative consequences from their energy being awakened. And so if you practice intense puja discipline without purifying the intellect or the emotions, this is where you see some people having negative reactions, even though they are practicing puja and not some intense yogic discipline. So that's basically a breakdown of why puja is very important and why puja and the pundits are very important in terms of what they are capable of doing in terms of guiding you and their knowledge. And so I hope this helps people appreciate the practice of puja and why, for example, we sit on the floor or why we do certain things certain ways in puja and why certain things are important. So thanks for joining me on this episode, and I hope this was informative, and see you next week.